Hi, welcome or welcome back. My name is Eleanor. If I'm welcoming you back from last week, then you'll know to expect a bit of a follow-up to my discussion about my reading of Jean Valentine's poetry. If you're new here, it's a follow-up, so you're welcome to watch this as is, or you might want to go back and watch the first one. I don't think it really matters. It's basically me talking about what I'm reading at the moment. And of course, the minute I finished the last video, when I said that I would try to discuss some of the poems by Valentine that were on her website, because then we could have a way of discussing poems where, maybe you want to read them too and see, where I might be similar to you or differ to you in my reading or whatever. Of course, the minute I said that, I regretted it, because when I like to choose my own constraints, but at the same time, once they are chosen, I feel too constricted. So, of course, I went and started reading other stuff. That usually happens, and I usually go and read the opposites. So I went, but I mean, does it really matter? This is how I read. So I went and got out this book, which is on my shelves, by Jack London, called The Sea Wolf. It's a really beautiful edition. As you can see, there's the profile of the captain. I've started reading it. I've just started maybe the first 20 pages or something like that. I don't think I've read Jack London before, but although maybe in my younger years, maybe in my childhood, it was read to me. But I have this gorgeous book. It's like this beautiful linen, and it's not very hard. I think they call it limp, a limp cover. And it's just so enticing because it has, not only is the printing so lovely, I'll insert pictures rather than holding it up, but the illustrations are so dramatic, and the colors are so strong. The illustrations are by Fletch Martin. It is hard to figure out how to read a book that's this big. Oh, you can see the gorgeous, there's no coloring here, but there is. Actually, let me take my bookmark out because I'll know where I found the place. Look at the, I'm not sure if you can see, it's like a sea gray blue on the side. It's so lovely. But it is heavy, and it's the kind of book you need to have an armchair. You have to sit in an armchair and read it. I like often to read lying down. I often read in bed anyway, or just, this is not that kind of informal book to read, but my arms are pretty strong and I'm managing, and it is a really good fun. I'm not, I've been meaning to pick up a lot of different books that you see behind me that were my grandfather's, and I really need, what I feel is that occasionally someone will mention a book or an author, or I will come across it by myself, usually on the internet, and then it gives me the push to pick up that book. I need some sort of incentive, and with this, the incentive was a booktuber whose name I've forgotten. I've just subscribed to her because the Linguists Library, who I really love, she is doing an Italian book tag, and she's doing it with another booktuber who lives in Italy, who I think is Italian. And when I went to look her up, I'll leave her name here because I'm afraid I've forgotten. But when I went to look her up, I saw that she had a couple of videos on Jack London. And I thought, okay, 'tis a sign. And I'm so pleased because Gosh, it starts out with a bang. This gentleman, this single gentleman, um, gets on this ship and immediately finds himself in a precarious position. The second in command to the captain has died, and he has been roped into being part of the crew, and he's never done that before, and he's he's quite dramatically scared. And that's just what I needed, actually, because first of all, it's a really good story. Second of all, I do not take well to going on boats. I generally get terribly, terribly seasick. And not only that, in a horrible mood. If you want to see the worst side of me, put me on a boat. You will see it. I used to be like that on planes, but I sort of outgrew it slowly. But even as a child, I was a vicious, vicious traveler. I was very mean to everyone. All the members of my family will agree to that when I was traveling either by boat or plane. And well, that's a good segue actually to something else I've been thinking about, which is, let me just put this aside, which is something that I like to watch. And I guess the YouTube algorithm has me down pat, because every time around this season, it starts recommending to me, the algorithm, I mean, videos on extreme snow sports, so skiing and snowboarding. Well, when I say extreme, I think that any skiing or snowboarding is extreme, but also like the very extreme. And I have never put on skis. I've I've lived in places where there was snow, but I have had no contact with any. I would literally break every bone in my body. I would have to have daily lessons for several months, intensive lessons one-on-one, and then I think I would love it. But I mean, if I was very rich, I think I would do that. I would hire someone for 3 months to teach me how to ski competently, because I'm enamored with these videos. It must be, I mean, let me know if any of you are skiers or snowboarders. It must be the most heavenly feeling to strap on your skis and just glide while looking at this gorgeous landscape. I wouldn't even be able to get on the chairlift, no less get off the chairlift. So watching those videos actually, maybe I'll bring this up, why not? Made me think about Jean Valentine. Well, I'm really going all over the place. It made me think about Jean Valentine for this reason. In the back of my mind, while I'm doing anything mundane in my life, and there's a lot of that, as there is for everyone, I'm sure, I'm sort of, I've got a little pot simmering, and the simmering pot is my thoughts about how do I, when I really enjoy one of Valentine's poems, what is she doing? What is it that's happening? And the book that I mentioned, which has the essays about Jean Valentine's poetry, one of them by Brenda Hillman, is called The Gift of the Double Swerve. And I'm watching all of these skiers and snowboarders swerve. Now, I call it swerving. They don't. They call it skiing. Because I did look it up once I started thinking about the swerve, you see. And I came across a few videos showing what skiers call swerving. So skiing is generally skiing, but when they say swerving, it means that you are kind of hopping up in the air and switching direction, and then hopping up and switching again. I'll put links below so that you can see what I'm talking about. It looks like the skier sort of maybe lost their mind, but is very good at doing so because they keep changing direction in unexpected ways and leaping about. And I think if I was a skier, I would enjoy that. So am I going to try to paraphrase Hillman's essay? I'll bring it up on my e-reader and I'll see. What she's talking about with the swerve is that in Valentine's poems, and it's just the most wonderful way to describe it, and it really is so helpful. With Valentine's poems, of course, I can't. Why would I be prepared? By the way, this is not at all planned. I just thought I have so many ideas. I'll just hop in here and talk. And as you can see, I'm not prepared, but do with that what you will. I don't think it's a big deal. So why am I feeling so self-conscious? Let me find it. So this is the thing with e-readers. It is quite cumbersome when you want to find the exact chapter. With a book, I just flip through it. With this, I have to go back and look at the contents because otherwise I'll be swiping for days. Here we are. The Gift of the Double Swerve, Jean Valentine's Endings by Brenda Hillman. It's an essay in this book. So, what Hillman tries to explain is that Valentine writes against closure, so which means that this poem is not going to fully satisfy you. You're definitely going to say what at some point in this poem, but there are also going to be points in this poem where you feel that you have stable ground and you know what's happening, and she swerves back and forth, much like a skier does when they do that swerving, and that's really interesting. Now, something I wanted to look into more is that Hillman goes even further to say that the swerving reminds her of Lucretius and what he says about the swerving atoms. Now, you see, this is something that I'm definitely going to make a note of and look up, because do I know what she's talking about? No, but I do know that I have a book, the Lucretius book. I don't even know if I'm pronouncing it correctly. And I've been waiting for an excuse to read it because I need the push. So here's my Lucretius of the nature of things. I don't know how many times I've Googled it and looked it up and started reading it, but you really need to be, sometimes you really need to be pushed, I think. Yeah, this is a really lovely edition. It has wood engravings by Paul Landacre. Now, it looks like a poem, so there you go. I wish I had Brenda Hillman on speed dial, and then I'd just be like, Professor Hillman, just a little question. Where should I start? Should I start from the beginning or whatnot? Here is, no, you know what? I'll take pictures and I'll put the images up for you because they're just gorgeous, the illustrations. Stunning. Okay, so the atom swerving. The poetry works like that. I mean, see, this is the kind of reading I love. I kind of like to jump around. I'll be thinking about one thing and it'll lead to another. So, yeah. Brenda Hillman goes on to say that part of the swerve in Valentine's poems also has to do with the way she uses repetition of words and rhyme, and play on words. And I will say that I was really surprised to hear that, because I thought to myself, there's no repetition, there's no rhyme. And then I looked and there's so much repetition in Valentine's poems, like literal repetition in the one line. I just didn't notice that because I was just immersed in my own imagination and just going wherever the poem was taking me. Usually when I first read a poem, I notice the way it's written, and I can't help but notice the craft details just because I'm so curious. But with Valentine, that immediately goes out the window the minute I start. Like, I just read her title and I'm off. So there's that with the swerving. And then, of course, one video that keeps on being recommended to me in different forms, because all these different skiers make this specific video, there is an extreme, I don't even remember where it is or what it's called. Oh, I do. Colbert. It just came to me. Colbert's Pass, maybe. A very, very difficult run on this mountain. See, I used the word run. I hope I used it correctly. To get to it, you have to go through a tunnel. The tunnel has a floor of ice. I mean, really. And you go through it, and it's quite long. And then when you come out, you're almost immediately at the start of the cliff face where you're going to. And the other skiers are usually standing around nervous, because they're all very. You can't go on this if you're not almost professional level skier. I mean, everyone knows that, but they still have nerves, as one does. And so they're sort of like, looking around, and you don't immediately just take off. You have to sort of hop down what they call a goat track. Look, I'll leave links. I'm sure you really were expecting this, weren't you? So you hop down on this little goat track, and then you've already committed. There's no going back. But then you have to take off on the actual slope, and it's very dangerous, and you're taking your life in your hands. But apparently it's the biggest thrill as well. And so then I was thinking of this tunnel as I was falling asleep the other night. And of course, I was thinking, and then the way you go through this doorway, this entryway into the tunnel, and it's like the door in the mountain, which is one of Valentine's most famous poems. That's the one that Franny Choi reads on the video that I recommended last time. So I started thinking about how and this is not something new. I have thought that reading poems like Valentine's that are challenging to my imagination is a type of intellectual extreme sport, just as someone else might be an extreme skier or cyclist, or you might be swimming, I don't know, swimming across the English Channel or something like that. There are lots of extreme sports, and if you are one of those people who does that as a hobby, then you are definitely the coolest person in any room. But if you're an extreme poetry reader, you are not the most popular person in the room. I thought that's rather unfair. But I do think that reminding myself that people do a lot of things for fun and thrills and the challenge of it, and they aren't asked to explain themselves. Remembering that allows me to feel, I suppose, a little bit more. It allows me to normalize my love for Valentine's poetry, for example. So there's that. And then, so I did go back to the website, and I looked at the poems that maybe some of you have read, and I did print out Truth because I liked it in an unexpected way. I printed it out and I put it on my bulletin board. And I think what attracted me at first was, well, first of all, Truth. I'm that cynical person in any group who's rolling her eyes whenever anyone talks about something being, absolutely true. I was attracted to just the idea of that in a poem, and you ought to go to bed at night. Just that alone, you ought to go to bed at night. I found that comforting. Whatever happens in the day, you ought to go to bed at night. This is the truth. But I think, it does follow along with possibly to hear the truth. So you ought to go to bed at night to hear the truth. Well, does that mean that you need to dream? Or is that sort of ironic that, do you need to? And then the idea of a childhood clock. What is a childhood clock? Is it your memories of your childhood? Is it just generally time? It starts from your first memory in childhood. That's when the childhood clock starts, and then when you die, that's when it ends. I mean, does everyone have a childhood clock just that keeps on going inside them? And then also, having spent quite a bit of time with my 2-year-old grandson, I'm thinking, of course, about how, it feels often like a baby or a toddler or a child is a childhood clock. It's almost like their job. Tick tock, tick tock, tick tock. You can't get away from time when you have the next generation coming up. A turned over boat, the walls wet canvases. It's just superb. It's a stunning poem, Truth. I can just see it, the turned over boat. And then the walls, are they the walls of your home as you're sleeping? Are they the walls that the turned over boat become? And of course, now I've been reading Jack London. But Jack London, I feel it's a captained boat, and it's a ship, really. It's a ship, and it's large, and things are happening. Things are not so much happening in Valentine's poems. The minute you think they're happening, they're gone. It's that swerve. It's like, what did she do? What is she saying now? It's wet canvases. It's something creative that's being made, but it's not finished yet. It hasn't dried off yet. It's still being made. Or maybe it's the wet canvas of the sails. In any case, I love that one. I didn't expect to be saying any of that. Okay. See, sometimes you read a poem and you actually don't realize how much time and effort you've put into thinking about it, and how much of a difference it's made to many aspects of your life until you're actually forced. And in a way, this is what I love about making these videos. Well, this is what I love primarily, is that it forces me to verbalize things that are happening internally. I can get them out, and also they usually surprise me. But coming back to this idea that I always go back to do something different after I promise to do the one thing, I decided, I don't feel like Jean Valentine now. I feel like reading another poem. And because I had been thinking about Kaveh Akbar again in the last video, if you remember, I pointed out that he loves Jean Valentine, and he has that video that I linked to about one of her poems. And I remembered that his partner, their name is Paige Lewis, if I'm not mistaken. They are also a poet, and Paige Lewis has this one poem that I would say has haunted me, and I love it, and I've loved it ever since I came across it years ago. And it's called, don't forget, what's it called? No, it's called You Can Take Off Your Sweater, I've Made Today Warm. I had to write it down because that's not an easy title to remember. And I was Googling because I wanted to find it online because I don't have it in a book. And so I was searching for, poem about a sweater. It's warm outside, it's not going to get you very far. But anyway, I will link a video of Paige Lewis reading that. And the video comes with the text. My favorite way of reading a poem is when it's combined with the poet reading, and it's on screen, and you can see the words appear in a very aesthetically pleasing way as you listen to the poet's voice. I cannot concentrate on any poem that's just read aloud. There's something in my makeup that doesn't allow me to process. I need to have the visual in front of me as well. Well, there's a mention of an inflatable deer in this particular poem by Paige Lewis, and you don't actually have to go and read it I'm just mentioning that the inflatable deer reminded me of the different ways that a trope, a poetry trope, which I think a deer sort of is. I mean, I don't know. That's what I think. I come across a lot of deers and deer, foxes, flowers, birds. Excuse me while I snore a bit. But the thing is that a great poet will do something very unusual. So the inflatable deer really held my imagination in Paige Lewis's poem. And then I thought about the poem by Valentine, where she's, again, in the mountain. Sorry, it's in my book here. In the mountain, where she's running with the deer on her back. So I was carrying a dead deer tied onto my neck and shoulders, deer legs hanging in front of me, heavy on my chest. Woo! That is a very strong, unusual image. I can see it in front of my eyes. Now, there's no explanation, which makes it, I think, even more powerful. What is this person doing? And yes, you can say, oh, it's dreamy time, it's a dream, or you can say, it's surreal or whatever. I don't like to label it like that. I like to accept the image as it comes to me. That is a very strong, striking image, and it comes to me with a lot of emotional, it contains emotional power. And yeah, it's a great image. And then I was thinking of how different it is from the inflatable deer. And I love that. And then, of course, I've been thinking about Mary Oliver. Now, I say, of course. It's not of course. I mean, how would you know that I've been thinking about Mary Oliver? A few people have mentioned Mary Oliver in the last few weeks. I've been feeling that I should not be disparaging any poet. As I said, this is my aim, not to disparage any poet. Am I human? Yes. I have to have this aim because my humanity means that I'm imperfect, and I do often disparage poets. I mean, there's one thing, if I think poetry is just very poor quality and it's obvious. And it's obvious to everyone, so what do I need to say anyway? But if I just don't like a kind of poetry, why should I disparage? I can just say that I don't like them. So I will say I really I don't really like Mary Oliver's poetry. Now, there's something that people say also. They'll say, "Oh, I appreciate it. I don't like it, but I appreciate it." I always find that a bit. I find it a bit patronizing, because I can sort of tell that you don't really appreciate it. You know what I mean? Like if someone says, "Oh, good for you for liking Valentine," I mean, I appreciate her. What does that mean? It just shows me that the other person is trying to be polite, actually, and 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 that's nice. And so I'm trying to be polite. Uh, I moving right along. I think I've dug my hole quite deep enough. Um, so I went and had a search. I thought, oh, I wonder if Mary Oliver has any deer in her poems, and she does. And where are they? Yeah, I found some deer. Actually, she has a poem. I printed them out. You see, I am trying. I'm trying to be open-minded. The Deer by Mary Oliver. I'll leave a link. Um, yeah. And on the hillside, this is towards the beginning. Uh, well, I'll start. I'll start at the beginning. Why not? The deer. You never know. The body of night opens like a river. It drifts upward like white smoke, like so many wrappings of mist. And on the hillside, two deer are walking along, just as though this wasn't the owned tilled earth of today, but the past. I did not see them the next day or the next, but in my mind's eye, there they are in the long grass like two sisters. And it continues. There's a narrative and it's gripping. Um, it's interesting to me to see how differently um, poets use a particular animal. Yeah. It's interesting. It's definitely much more calming to read The Deer by Mary Oliver, and it is. I do feel a comfort to it because I feel like yes, I've seen. Look, have I seen deer in real life? Yes. So yes, I've seen like two deer, and it is like sisters, and it's sort of I know where I'm at, but it's an elevated. It's a landscape elevated to a more poetry friendly world, I suppose. But it isn't the crazy. Well, not crazy. It isn't the extraordinary image of something so unusual that I've never thought about before and is making all of my imaginative is making my imagination explode. Um, there's a place for everything. There is a Lorine Niedecker poem about a doe that comes to mind. I will take a photo of it and put it here. And I'll leave a link to her because she's an interesting poet. But I always think about that, yeah, that image of the doe. I think it's her body floating on the water. And then you go back to Paige Lewis's Inflatable Deer. So that's fun. I did the same. After I was thinking about the deer, I did the same with the geese, just because, I'll tell you why. Because I know that Mary Oliver, one of her most famous poems is Wild Geese. It starts famously with this sentence, "You do not have to be good. You do not have to walk on your knees for 100 miles through the desert repenting." And now you see, I can totally see how this would help calm you. And like probably 15 years ago, it probably would have, and I would have put it up on my bulletin board, and it would have really given me help in hard times. But at the moment where I am now, personally speaking, I don't want my poems to be telling me what to do, even if they're trying to help. I don't want to be helped through life with my poems. I want you to interest me with very unusual language and show me how your imagination is working. Show me how the world is different from what I perceive. Hint at things that I can think about for a long time and discuss with my friends and family. I don't need to be told that I don't need to be good. I already know that. But thank you, because it's very kind of you to try to help me. What was I saying? Oh yeah, but why I was thinking about the geese is because in Brenda Hillman's essay on the swerving, she talks about a poem by Valentine called Red for Blood. And part of it goes, I don't want to go, but I can't not go. The animals all go up like chimney sweeps, eternity. You, me, up on a rope like the live geese, chimney sweep geese. What? You see, this is my jam. So, of course, the first thing, like the geese, okay, so they're live geese, and and the speaker is going up. Or maybe it's the animals, you're not quite sure. I don't want to go, but I can't not go. Where the speaker's going, don't know. The animals all go up like chimney sweeps, eternity. So, she's using chimney sweeps in an unusual way. What exactly does she mean? And how does eternity come in? I'm thinking about that now, about what changes you, what covers you in soot when you're going through the chimney. You're going up a chimney. Well, that's against the rules of gravity, of physics, up to eternity. I mean, there are so many cliches, so many tropes, and they're tropes because we're used to them. So we're used to the idea of, for example, Santa Claus going down the chimney, and no one thinks it's like weird because we're used to it. If we lived in a different time and culture and language was used differently by the poets around us, maybe we would be thinking about things going up on a rope through a chimney. And not only that, but that is like the geese, like live geese. Now, what are chimney sweep geese? It's up to me. I'm the reader, and I'm going to decide. I'm going to use whatever's in the text, but I'm never going to forget the chimney sweep geese. And it's something that I can talk about, and different people can have different ideas. With the Mary Oliver poem, it's really very personal. I think you'd read the Wild Geese. Is it called? You'd read Wild Geese by Mary Oliver alone, and it would make you calm, and it would hopefully help you in some way, which is a great thing, because not many things can do that, and not many poems can do that. And then you would probably at some point send it to a friend who was going through a hard time and say, this helped me, this will help you. You're never going to do that with Red for Blood. And you will actually be astonished to see, I will link and put here, the beginning of that poem is quite different from the geese. And so I think it's talking about lambs, but in any case, I'll put it up. And you'll see the swerve and remember my skiing. Well, I remember my swerve skiing analogy, because it helps me feel like it's okay that I like the swerves. That's okay. Just as it's okay if you don't want any swerves and you don't want any extreme sport in your reading, and you just want the geese to be normal geese who fly in the sky, and that's more than enough for you, and that's fine too. I think I've come to the end of everything I was going to talk about. Okay, ciao.